Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 2nd, 2017 regular city council meeting. And Mr. Weed is slowly making his way to his appointed chair. So the first 15 minutes of all our meetings we have are called open mic, and I would like to break with just having anybody walk up. Not anybody, but we have some students here that have promised me they would like to come forward and talk to us about technology and how that may be incorporated with the 3A and 3B referendum. Would you come on up and give your names and tell us who you are and what you would like to say to us?
Hi, my name is Jillian Hardy, and I'm currently a senior at Canyon City High School.
Hi, I'm Destiny Taylor, and I'm currently a junior at Canyon City High School.
I'm Brandon Bouchard, and I'm currently a junior at Canyon City High School.
Welcome. Would you like to do you want to discuss your technology, or go ahead? This is your time.
So all three of us are part of the Tiger Open Pathway at the high school, which is kind of an alternative learning style. We have laptops that we were granted, so we have one-on-one technology that we can actually take home and do our online learning. And it's really been very important to all of us and a really great opportunity. And 3A and 3B will further help get one-on-one technology in our schools because it's very important, and technology is part of our future. It's something that we have to keep expanding on and keep, implementing into our school because it is the future. It's something that we all have to deal with, and that's what we're going to have to do when we enter the workforce. So this is a great way for us to kind of get more familiar with it and to expand upon it and have it be a part of our education so that we can further implement it into our working lifestyle. Another thing I'd like to talk about is like the books that we have at the high school. A lot of them are very tattered and broken, and they're being held together with duct tape and glue, and there's writings and foldings, and pages are ripped out, and it kind of makes learning and reading from those books difficult because it's distracting. You're trying to read through, laying on your bed, and all of a sudden 10 pages fall out. So 3A and 3B would further help us get better books so that we aren't being distracted when pages are falling out and when our books are falling apart. And we can just be more focused on what we're reading and how important that is to us. And I'd like to come back to the technology, the one-on-one technology, because while I have been privileged enough to have my own personal laptop at home, a lot of kids in our community don't have that opportunity. And so having one-on-one technology in our schools and having students be able to take those laptops home to them, it would just further improve their learning opportunities and how well they can learn. And it's something that we really need to be improving upon is our technology in our schools and our books. And our schools are kind of falling apart, and I see it every day. But right now we have the opportunity to fix that with 3A and 3B. So I think it's something very important that the community should pass and vote yes on, because this isn't just my future, it's their future. It's the future of all the kids at Canyon City High School, and it's honestly the future of Canyon City itself. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Have you thought about running a campaign? Very good. Wow, that's refreshing. Thank you. We have George. Would you like to chime in on anything here for us, or after that group right there? I don't know if I'd want to follow that, to be honest with you. You got some great students there, so that's usually the way it is. We might give you just a little bit more, but if you have something to hand out, and
can I do some handouts first?
yes, you may. You have buttons for us too? Wow. I have my button. Button, who's got the button? Pretty creative, huh?
We have swag. I'll wait till y'all get your documents, and then I'll start at that point, if that's okay.
Okay. Is this kind of like homework, George?
Sure.
Have to
Sure, and
read
I
it,
bet
huh?
you guys get a little of that as members of the
Yes, we get,
governing body
we
of
get
the
quite a
town.
bit of reading material, actually.
And sorry to add to that load.
No, that's fine. I want to hear about this. Go ahead. If, while they're handing that out, George, if you'd like to go ahead, why don't you?
Okay.
Go ahead.
What you're receiving are three documents. One is an actual copy of the ballot language that will be on this November's ballot. And then there's a frequently asked questions, question 3A, and a frequently asked questions, question 3B. What I would like to do is just explain to you the situation we're in and why we're asking this. It is after hours, so I think I can lean a little bit toward one side on this, but we're really just trying to run a factual campaign and not so much an emotional campaign. Question 3A, and you're welcome to start the time. I'll keep it under there if you'd like. Question 3A is a mill override, and what we're asking for is a little bit more operations dollars than we currently get. Canyon City Schools actually gets 95% of state average per pupil operating dollars. The $1.385 million we're asking for would get us up to 100%. And I kind of say we sort of compete with one hand tied behind our back as far as operations. And these dollars, as you can see on the fact sheet there, we want them to go to increasing the access to technology for students, updating learning resources, which, you know, I know all you guys, it's been a long time since you were in school, but nowadays when you buy a new textbook, you get a digital resource that we can't even tap into, even though we pay for, because we don't have the devices in kids' hands. This will help us improve our building safety and maintenance. And I know a lot of people criticizing us about the condition of our buildings, but you guys know as a local governing agency, if you don't have the dollars to invest in the things you need to do to repair your buildings, you're going to fall behind. Canyon City Schools took a $3.5 million budget cut back in 2010, and that $3.5 million gap has never closed in relation to inflation. And quite frankly, the way we do the math, we've been asked to operate for the last 7 years on 6 years' worth of funding. And by the way, you hear me saying $3.5 million gap. We're asking for $1.385 million. So we're not even asking you to close that gap. We're just asking for operations dollars that can help us also hire and retain high-quality employees. And we also have taken some hits recently in our preschool funding because of the change in state allocations, and we want to make sure our kids get a head start. On the flip side is question 3B, which is a bond question, and I think the easiest way to sell this is we're asking you for $18.2 million, and we say for that $18.2 million, we can get you $52.9 million worth of capital improvements in the district. Part of this question would go to matching a grant we currently have that will improve the safety of all our entries in our schools, as well as the safety and health conditions within the buildings. It will pay off the Mountain View Core Knowledge Charter School building loan so that they can spend those dollars each year on operations, and it would build a new Washington Elementary and a new Canyon City Middle School. And you guys are probably familiar with some stuff that's been out there. We shot videos of what the concerns are about those buildings. And with about 8 seconds left, I'd be happy at this point to answer any questions you have related to what it might cost the taxpayer, why we can't save these schools, things like that.
Well, we have, go ahead, Kathy.
You have 3A and 3B,
Yes.
That's it.
and on the ballot, it's 3B and 3C.
Because Okay. You seriously? Oh, you know what I did? I'm sorry. What I gave you the one from 2013. Does that say the date? 2013? Okay. I grabbed the wrong one off the shelf, so don't read that language. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. That would be real bad with all these T-shirts and everything. Apology. I pulled that off of a shelf thinking it was the one from this year. And I will email to you the current language from this year that you can pass along. We've put it out on Facebook and some other places. Thanks for the catch.
So what
There
you're
must
saying
have been
is if you
another
had
question.
technology, this wouldn't have happened?
What's that?
If you had technology, this wouldn't have happened?
I won't say that.
Go
A
ahead, say
smarter
it.
superintendent, it wouldn't have happened.
Go ahead. Ashley, question?
I do have a question. Well, first, George, I just want to thank you for the excellent job that you and the schools are doing. I have kids that go to these schools, and I'm really thankful for all that you and the teachers do, and I'm thankful for the students that showed up today, and we're an advocate for the students. I really commend you, Will, for being a participant in local government. My question is thinking hopefully towards the future, that if Canyon City Middle School, if the bond does pass and it gets rebuilt, I'm kind of looking ahead because in 2018 we have scheduled to put some new sidewalks and crossings in at CCMS. And I just wanted to make sure that if that school gets rebuilt, where will it be rebuilt on that property? And will those sidewalks, the way we're building them in next year, still be benefiting to the full potential to the children's safety?
Yeah, if I'm not wrong, that's a Safe Routes to School grant that the community
Yeah.
got prior to my arrival here. I know, and I'm familiar with that. And the answer is the current decision of the board, the decision the board put on the ballot is to build the school about where it is. It actually will be some feet behind the current one. The current one will come down in this plan. It will be lined up to the current competition gym that we use, where kids play their middle school sports against other schools. So it'll move the school back a little bit. However, knowing pretty soon whether we'd get to move forward with this project or not, we should be able to leverage the opportunities brought about through that Safe Routes to School grant to blend right into the construction project.
Okay.
Our intent is to fully incorporate that. We were a little bit concerned when the board was going the route to build a new school out on the baseball field at one point, but after trying to run that by the BEST board and them feeling that not having a good plan for the old facility, not getting approval on that, we decided to go right where the current one is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great
Best wishes
question.
to you.
So this is an excellent way to get money, that instead of flowing it all to Denver, to flow it back to us, including some marijuana money that'd be
Yeah.
incorporated in that.
Yeah, the way the Building Excellent Schools Today program is funded is two routes. One is through state trust lands, the profits made off of it each year, that they're supposed to go to education, and so they go into a capital funding project fund. And then the bulk right now is coming in through marijuana excise tax. And whether our citizens participate in paying the tax or not, we can't access it very well unless we do a good job on accessing the capital construction funds.
And that's specifically when it was voted into the state, was for capital construction of schools.
Correct.
That's what it's for, and that's how we get it back to our area.
Correct.
Right.
The law required 40 to 50 million per year going in.
Correct. Okay.
I have another suggestion for clarification. I noticed in a recent publication in the Crusader, a comment was made, where's all the marijuana money? Shouldn't that be paying for this? Well, the marijuana, opportunity for marijuana grant money is there and being utilized, but we have to match it in order to get that money. It's just
Correct, and our
something that
match
we-
requirement is 32%. So
So
we
that
get,
might
we
be-
get a building at 32% of cost.
Right, so I thought it might be good to clarify that for other people who might have that same question or perception.
Yeah, we've been trying to do that for a year now. There's some people that, just want to, and I get it, is because when the question was on the ballot, I think there was a feeling that not only was marijuana going to be legalized, but somehow the school finance issue in the state was going to be solved, and not even close. But this would help our community a lot.
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you. Could we have some buttons? Or you can, you just, and to the students of Canyon City High School, I want you to go away and get an education, but I want you to come back and make your community better. Bring your jobs, bring your creations. Maybe someone out there will invent a Google. You come back to Canyon City, okay? Let's do a picture. Let's do that.
Thanks so much for your time.
Come on, let's have all the representatives for 3 and 3 for the schools. We'd like you to invite you up to get a picture taken with City Council.
We got 2 minutes.
Preston, you don't even have your button. You don't even have a button. Where's your button?
We need to crowd in closer.
Thanks for your time.
It's broken.
You know what they say about don't let the door hit you. That's not really a door.
Okay, it is time to call the regular city council meeting for October 2nd to order. And before we have the invocation, we're going to have an invocation from Don Brightwell of the Light Behind the Door Ministries. But I'd like you all to remember and think about and pray for those individuals that lost their lives and were injured in Las Vegas. That was a horrible tragedy, not only for Las Vegas, but for all towns and for our country. So we'd like to ask if you'd rise for Don to come up to the microphone and give us a prayer.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for the invitation to be here. I invite you to join me in prayer. Almighty God and Father, possessor of heaven and earth, on this day, we stand together with our fellow citizens throughout the country in grief and incomprehension over the horrific event that occurred last night in Las Vegas. And we look to you, even knowing there are no simple answers. But we recall the words of Job, that in you are wisdom and might, to you belong counsel and understanding. And we remember the words of the Apostle Paul, that you are the Father of mercies and God of all comfort. And so we ask for your comfort and wisdom. We pray that you would console the families of those killed and injured, that you comfort those who experienced and survived the tragedy, and that you reassure and strengthen those who responded to their rescue. And we ask for your wisdom for those tasked with investigating and bringing some sense of understanding to the unthinkable, and for the leaders of our nation expected to have an answer or resolution. And finally, O God, we do not take for granted that we, in our small community, have not experienced or endured misfortune of this magnitude. And we acknowledge with a humble spirit that this is only so by your providence. And so we pray this evening for all involved in this meeting, those stewards of public trust who work on behalf of Canyon City and the citizens they represent, that all might be done here with humility and gratitude for what you have given to us and done for us. All this we ask in the name of the one through whom we are reconciled to you. Amen.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag Thank you. Would you call a roll, please?
Mayor Trotman.
Here.
Council members Smith,
Here.
Schumacher. Here. Gill,
Here.
Weed,
Here.
Jaquez,
Here.
Meisner.
Here.
Councilmember Ekstrom is excused. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any citizens request to speak to council?
We have received no written request to speak.
Okay, thank you. Then I move, we have the approval of the minutes for the September the 18th, 2017 regular city council meeting and the September 20th vision committee meeting. Are there any corrections at this time for those minutes? None? Could I have a motion and a second? Mr. Meisner.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I move that we approve the minutes from the 9:18 regular council meeting and the 9:20 Vision Committee meeting.
Second.
Made and second. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Meisner,
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher. Aye. Councilmember Jaquez,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Gill,
Aye.
Councilmember Weed.
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Thank you. Are there any council member announcements at this time? Mr. Weed?
Thank you. There will be a general government committee meeting this coming Thursday. Normally, those would be on Wednesday, except there's a CML local meeting, regional meeting going to be held in Canyon City on Wednesday, and so that meeting has been deferred until Thursday, and Councilman Meisner will be chairing that meeting.
And I think the mayor is going to chair it.
Oh, is it okay if I chair?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
Can we have a vote?
is that okay?
Do we
Nay.
Don't want to do it.
I was just gonna say too, and I don't, Tony, usually Judy Loans is our facilitator, because it's a stormwater task force meeting. Will she be a part as far as
Her and
Ma-
Mayor can fight over it.
facilitating that meeting? Here. Yeah. So just let you know that.
Okay, that's fine. I'm sorry. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just
Mr. Schumacher?
one little thing. I would like to thank everybody involved with my wonderful solar flashing red lights at Fifth and Macon. A big thank you for all of the work and the trouble. They're wonderful, and I want everyone to know that I am watching you, so you better stop.
Is it working so far?
We've got about a 50% ratio of individuals that actually stop. And that's
That's better than
49%
10%.
more than we had.
Better than 10%, correct?
Better than 1%, you betcha.
Okay.
But thank everybody.
There's a lot of humor going from that. But anyway, also I'd like to announce that there'll be Trunk or Treat is October the 28th, and we are going to shut off 2 blocks of downtown Canyon City because last year we got between 2,000 and 3,000 children to show up, and I was there as well, and I was overwhelmed. I felt great because I was one of the taller people there. Okay, well, I
Are
won't
you
try that.
dressing up, Mayor? Do you
Yeah,
dress up?
I'm going to dress up as a mayor. Nobody will know me. No.
Wouldn't bet on it.
It's going to be from 11:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon, and it is just exciting. There are so many kids, and we do need donations of candy just in case anybody would like to do that. But it's October the 28th, and that's a great time for Canyon City, great time for our kids, and hopefully our future voters.
What blocks are those that it's going to be in?
You guys will be considering it next meeting.
Oh,
It's
okay.
I think it's
500 block.
the 500 and 600 block, because the Department of Corrections will have some of their equipment there as well.
They added a block, so.
They added a block to their equipment,
And where does the candy need to go that you're requesting donations
to the
of?
kids.
No, 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 no.
Huh?
You mean for everyone to come out with their
No,
bucket of
no,
candy
no.
and their lawn chair and,
No. There are
to the chamber.
donated, you can bring it to the Chamber of Commerce,
okay,
and then they'll parcel it out to the different groups that'll be there,
okay.
okay? They dress their way. It's a trunk or treat. They actually decorate the backs of their vehicles with all kinds of interesting things, so it's a great time. Okay? Anybody else? All right. We need to move to adoption of the agenda and the consent agenda. Tony, would you review the consent agenda items, please?
Yes, Mayor and Council, 5A would authorize the city administrator to sign an engagement letter with Swan Horse and Company for the amount of $21,000 to conduct the city's 2017 financial audit. This will be the final year of their engagement before we put it out to bid next year, just to make you aware of that. 5B would authorize the administrator's signature to an in-pound agreement with the Humane Society of Fremont County for the amount of $44,349. That's a approximately 12% or $4,881 increase from last year. The good news is that the Humane Society has been requested by the council over the last couple of years, intends to seek parity with the cost per capita of Canyon City, Fremont County, and Florence by next year. So that's a positive sign. And our current per capita cost will be $2.68, and next year is proposed to go to $3, but same with those other communities. So that is a positive step, in our opinion.
Mr. Meisner?
Tony mentioned that it's next year. It's actually 19. 2019,
excuse me, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this contract is for 2018. I apologize. 5C is a resolution 29-2017 amending a CDOT contract. As you know, we received originally a $370,000 grant from CDOT in 2015, and last December we received another $247,000 from the off-system bridge program. As a requirement, we have to make a 20% match, so our corresponding match increases from $74,000 on the first grant to a total of $136,000 for both grants. So we're putting up 20%, the state's putting up 80%, and as you know, we have an outstanding bid. The first two times Adam put this out on the street, we virtually got no bidders, and this year we've not only got a great bidder in Kiewit, but it's under the budget. So we're thrilled to finally get this project underway.
Good. And list of bills. Okay, could we then have the administrator's report? Tony?
I just wanted to highlight for the.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're-
Need to make a
I'm trying to get done quick, aren't I?
Yeah.
Here, huh? Zip
No
right
problem.
through it. I'm sorry. Then, are there any additions or corrections?
I just had a question, Tony, out of curiosity, who was the second bidder on the 4th Street Viaduct?
It was a local company. Adam, I don't have. Okay.
Item number 12.
There was quite a bit of a spread.
Okay.
We're happy that at least we got multiple bids.
And did Kiewit say when they would start the project? I saw that it was open to any time in 2018, but did they say when they anticipated starting construction?
I'm reporting on later tonight.
Okay. I guess.
We'd love it to be in the springtime, but we'll let Adam speak to that.
Okay.
I think that's item number 12.
Well, in that
It's number
case,
12.
I would like to make a motion, Mayor,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we adopt the agenda and consent agenda for today, Monday, October 2nd, 2017's meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Weed. Any discussions on that motion? Mr. Meisner?
Just quickly, I'd like to reiterate, first of all, I'd like to thank Tony for committing to bidding that project for next year on the
Financial audit, yep.
But then, I just think we need to take a moment to recognize that, and I congratulate the Humane Society in striving in 2019 to actually reach the equality in rates that we had such a mess over last year, that essentially, that's exactly what we're achieving by their agreement, is that in 2019, we're going to achieve that equality, and I appreciate that.
Well, I think it's important to keep an eye on, too, is that they are requesting parity and equality, but I want to see that those municipalities or those entities actually do agree to match those funds that are requested and have that equality.
Definitely know that next year, but they appear to be moving in the right direction to achieve that, which is great.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez? Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, now let's try the administrator's report. Tony, do you have anything to report?
Just a short update, just wanted to allow the public to know that we'll be putting on our website the results of the 2017 Citizen Survey, what they expressed in way of overall quality of city services, but also a whole host of questions about the future of this community, which we think is very, very important. In addition, we'll have the online results very soon, so we'll post both those on our website so the public can get access to that, and hopefully Carrie write a nice story in the paper.
Okay.
Tony, when will that be posted? Do you know yet?
Tomorrow.
Oh, great. And everybody said government was slow.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay, thank you, Tony.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
let's go to number 7, ordinance number 33, series 2017. This is a second reading. It's an ordinance appropriating additional sums of money. Would you read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 33, series of 2017, an ordinance appropriating additional sums of money to defray expenses in excess of amounts budgeted for the city of Canyon City, Colorado for the 2017 budget year.
Could I have a motion and a second?
I make a motion, Your Honor,
Sure.
that we accept ordinance 33, series of 2017 on second reading.
Second.
Second, Ms. Jaquez. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing and seeing none, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, thank you. Number 8 is ordinance number 34, series of 2017. It is a second reading, an ordinance prohibiting the use of cell phones and texting while driving. Would you read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 34, series of 2017, an ordinance amending chapter 10.04, the Canyon City Municipal Code by the addition thereto of a new section 10.04.065 governing misuse of a wireless telephone while driving, and a new section 10.04.720 governing driving under restraint, and amending section 10.04.060C penalties.
Okay, could I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Schumacher?
you bet. I happily and gladly make for motion ordinance number 34, series of 2017, approved on second reading.
Second? Mr. Meisner, thank
I'll
you.
second.
Any discussion on that motion?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yeah, it's, I agree with the concept, and I don't want my no vote to indicate that I don't agree with the concept. However, I think the ordinance itself is excessively punitive. It's already covered in Colorado law, and there's no, we don't need to adopt it locally. I think it puts more emphasis on enforcing this than I really want to see. There's the argument that it keeps it in local court. Tickets can be written into local court anyhow. But it's for the reasons I stated. I'm opposed to this. I'm not opposed to the concept, but I am opposed to the implementation.
Mr. Gill?
In my opinion, I'm going to vote no, because the first fine is $300. And you take a generation of kids that are trying to raise families and do this and do that have been texting and driving their entire lives, not thinking anything of it. You have two members of a family that are making minimum wage, doing this, doing that, and to throw a $300 fine at them on the first time, I see that would be a bad thing, because what it'll do is they'll choose to put diapers on their baby rather than pay this fine, and then they get in a system that's a never-ending revolving door. So I will be voting no. I do appreciate and I do believe that texting and driving should be a violation, but I think it should be a minuscule fine on the first offense and then graduating as it goes on. Unless there is an accident that is caused by them texting and driving, then it should be the $300 fine. Have a nice day. My opinion.
Mr. Meisner?
Correct me if I'm wrong or right, whichever. But assuming that we did not implement this or vote this in, and we followed only state statute, we would not have any option with the first penalty. Is that correct?
Correct, it's a state statute. It's a minimum penalty.
Catherine?
Yes, that's correct, except it would only flow through the county court.
Right.
Yeah.
But the state statute allows no variance or options relative to the initial penalty.
Right, so the legislator declared it a matter of statewide concern, and as a home rule municipality, we don't think you have the authority to vary that fine.
And I think that's wrong for our community.
Although heaven forbid, if that texter
Oh, no, I
were driving and texting and they killed that baby in the car.
No, I
that needed those
understand.
diapers.
No, and I wholeheartedly support, but I just think that the fines to get off, to start out with, are way too high, if it was a graduating thing. But no, I do support an ordinance and a fine against texting and driving, and it's gonna be an unlearned behavior for most of the children that are here in our town. But no, I agree with you 100%.
Unfortunately, we don't have any leeway in.
I know, and like I said, it's gonna be enforced at state level or on, or district level. But like I said, I think that the $300 for a first offense is just way too much money.
And just so you may already be aware of this, but the municipal court's pretty good at working with people for payment plans and not requiring that payment of the whole $300 or whatever the fine is, regardless of the charge up front, and working with them and working something out. So I don't know if that,
I was not aware of that.
That's true.
but-
Judge Allen has a very sensitive heart to the needs of our community, especially those who do struggle, that's for sure.
Looks like we're going to hear from the chief.
Well, Mr. Marquez?
The comment I want to make, I understand when we talk about a fine being excessive and stuff like that, but, and I understand when we talk about not everybody can afford the fine, okay? But the thing about it is this, okay? I think the purpose why this was done was the fact that we want to make more people cautious of the hazards of texting and driving, okay? We don't want to wait until an accident happens. We want to avoid accidents from having. And by doing something like this, hopefully, you can get that point across, okay? And I understand not everybody can afford that. But I'm looking at why do I think it was done, and I think it was done so we can avoid the serious accidents we are having on our roadways throughout the entire state of Colorado. And so for that reason, you know, even though the fines are excessive, I think it's still a good bill.
Okay. Any other discussion amongst council? Well, this is the discussion among council. That's what the motion is. If any of you wish to talk to the chief, you have to ask him a question directly.
Yeah, I've got just one more comment. So
Go
when
ahead.
Chief Harvey was here, I think the point he made real clear is that by adopting this ordinance, we are making this a priority enforcement matter for the police department, as opposed to if it remains state law, but we decline to adopt it locally, it'll be an enforcement tool, but I think it'll be probably maybe enforced less rigorously, but done appropriately. I think what we're going to see is there's going to be an awful lot of emphasis on enforcing this, and I think that's going to be unfortunate.
Well, and we have clarified very clearly that it'd only be for drivers who demonstrate, number one, that they are texting, and number two, that they are carelessly driving. It's not just for any random texter, but they also have to be carelessly driving, which puts lives at risk. I would like to directly ask a question to Chief Harvey. Why does this need to be a priority for Canyon City?
Well, I can tell you today, fortuitously, on my way to City Hall for another meeting this morning, I actually had an opportunity to see someone texting and driving right next to me and was running off the right side of the roadway. So I did pull him over for the state law violation, and I think the thing that maybe I could have done a better job articulating is that by council discussing this and saying this is a matter of safety concern within the city of Canyon City, our intent is, after second reading and hopefully passage tonight, is to do a public safety education campaign, starting off with, this was the discussion. We feel it's a concern. We want people to be safe. We also don't want to excessively punish folks. And just like that young man today that I gave a verbal warning, even though I could have cited them via state statute, our mindset moving forward is this is a matter of concern. If it's a safety issue, if you almost hit somebody, officer discretion is obviously going to come into play with these things. And if the person is like the young man today that I pulled over, he was very apologetic. He knew exactly why I'd pulled him over. And I have no doubts he won't do that again. He also will be in our system, so that if somebody else pulls him over for it again, then he's already been warned once. And so I think it's in the application of this, but what's really important for City Council is that we say, in Canyon City, stay off your phone. And we're going to do several things to give people alternatives. But from the police department and the city's perspective, after tonight, if this does pass, the first thing is going to be is City Council wants you to be safe. And we're going to do a public safety and public education campaign for the next 30 days.
When you say public education campaign, what does that entail?
So that would be social media, public service announcements on the radio. It would also be things on our website. There would be pulling over, just like the young man today, if we see somebody, but there would be no issuance of citations unless it would be a grievous matter for at least 30 days. But the mindset moving forward is to change behavior and not solely to be punitive.
And I think I like the idea of issuing warnings so they recognize that this is a dangerous act and that they need to take this seriously in the future, and I appreciate that.
So you have the ability to see if an individual has been issued a warning
Yes.
on your system?
In our records management system, we do have the ability to be able to see whether somebody's been given a written warning or some sort of other law enforcement contact.
So long as it was entered the first time.
Yes. It has to be entered, obviously.
Okay, we've had this discussion last week, so any other discussion?
And Mr. Mayor, I would just like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 34.
We've already done
We have a motion, we're looking for a second.
I have
And
a
I
second
think
from
let's
Mr.
We
call
have a
the
second.
motion.
We're at the discussions. It's been a long day.
It's a long discussion.
All right, so any more discussion on that? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Schumacher.
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Councilmember Weed.
Taking into consideration Chief Harvey's comments, and hopefully that they actually will follow through with
Their plan.
some kind of, the plan, some kind of, let's phase this in, I'm going to vote yes.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Yes.
Councilmember Gill.
In lieu of the conversations had from many different sides, I will vote yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay,
Thank you
then.
very much.
Chief
Thank you
Harvey,
for being here,
just a
Chief.
minute, Chief, could you, since that is the consent, I think, of the councils, we'd like to hear a report back on how you're doing. Maybe you can do it in 2-3 weeks or 30 days. You pick it, but no more than 30 days. We'd like to have you come back and give us some kind of a discussion on how it went and warnings and things of that nature. Is that okay?
Certainly.
Okay?
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I don't know if it's is it appropriate to also send our wishes to Judge Allen to make sure that we're sensitive to the financial situations of some of those who may be issued a $300 ticket?
Sure. I mean, he has full judicial discretion, but I'm happy to share that with him.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you.
That's my major concern, is I'm getting
Please.
stuck in the loop for $300.
I'm happy to, I'll let him know.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Number 9 is ordinance number 21, series 2017. This is a first reading. It's an ordinance amending Title 17. I need 3 to introduce this. Who's 3? Mr. Weed, Mr. Arquez, Ms. Smith. Would you quick read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 21, series of 2017, an ordinance amending various sections of Title 17 of the Canyon City Municipal Code related to junkyard shipping containers, screening, and maintenance of display lots.
Thank you. Could we have a report from city planner, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of council. The first reading for this was back in July. I'll refresh your memory just a bit. There were 3 items that council suggested revisions for in the ordinance. One of them was to limit the number of days that a pod-style container could be located on a property. The second was allowing intermodal shipping containers as accessory and principal uses, also including in the central business district, and also revising screening requirements of commercial and industrial activities so that they are more concise. This goes back to much earlier in the year when we started to consider the aesthetics of the corridor, or all of our corridors in and out of town. And we came up with some suggested revisions based on code enforcement actions. And the results of these are a brief change to an definition of a junkyard, dealing with intermodal shipping containers, some screening regulations that we would like to beef up just a little bit, and also display lots. So the only thing that actually you guys were concerned about at that time was changing some wording as it had to do with those 3 items that I mentioned to you before. So let me go through and discuss what the staff has done in the last few months on this. The intermodal shipping containers, this was actually a suggestion by Councilman Ekstrom, and the pod style, which are those that are used just for temporary storage that someone might have delivered to them and they're put in their driveways. He suggested that those not be allowed as long as 60 days, so we changed that to 30 days. When we started talking about intermodal shipping containers, the conversation, I think, grew a little bit beyond what the staff had intended when we first brought it to you. Intermodal shipping containers, as we had proposed, would only be as accessory structures, meaning they would be used for garages or sheds or some type of a storage facility on basically a residential lot. We did not intend to consider them as principal structures. And I know that they are very unique and they could be very innovative as principal structures, as an office building or as a home, for instance. But we are not, as we looked into this, we're not prepared at this time to make and use them as principal structures right now. So we would like to pull that conversation back and have you consider them just as accessory structures. While we were doing that, we realized that they may not be appropriate in a mobile home park because of the limited space available in a mobile home park and rental spaces, and also in the central business district because of the 0 lot line construction and very small lots in the central business district. A lot of that in the old North End, as I mentioned, we have some very small lots and houses, even homes, that have maybe no more than 5 or 10 feet between them. So we didn't want to suggest that those possibly could be used in those settings. So what we did was establish just some very simple regulations around allowing them in residential neighborhoods. Actually, they would be allowed in all the districts except mobile home and central business. And so we came up with another, it's called a supplementary regulation, that would allow them as a use by right for accessory as long as, let me get to that point, as long as they are not placed in the front setback or along a street side setback. And they should be painted, or they could conceivably be otherwise altered, but that might require some sort of a building permit. Now, we discussed this as being like our first, getting our toes wet with respect to this kind of a structure, because our building inspector indicated that when you put windows or something like that into an intermodal shipping container, the structure then loses its structural integrity. So it may have to be beefed up. There would have to be definite plans submitted with that. An engineer would have to sign off on it. So we don't expect that. We don't expect that we're really going to even have any of those requests, but we would put that in the regulation to allow people to do it if they wanted to. And then we would not allow stacking of the containers at this point, and that's as an accessory. So, I'm, Dennis is looking at me rather
Well, I'm deciding if you want to entertain discussion right now or wait until you...
Do you mind if I finish?
No,
Okay,
please.
thank you. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to move on from there.
Sure.
So revising screening requirements. Councilman Meisner was concerned that we were not being as concise as we needed to be in that part of the code. And so we added some language that we hope makes more sense, so that we aren't requiring somebody to screen a commercial activity that has no reason to be screened. For instance, and his example was outdoor seating in a dining area. And we don't want that. The intent is in order to provide a transition between incompatible uses and to screen undesirable views, if those happen to be part of the situation that's where this commercial activity may be. So that wording, we hope, will make this acceptable. And we've also redefined exterior activity areas as those are service areas or outdoor storage. So those are the three items that we have ended up changing. And I would be happy to answer questions if I can.
You first, Dennis.
Man, okay. That's, okay. First thing I want to question is the elimination from the Mobile Home 1 zone district. And if you approach this from a couple of different angles, but if I read this correctly, in addition to you can't put it in front, and if you're on a side lot, you can't put it on the street side, regardless of the zone district, it's still subject to all the setback requirements for accessory structures.
It is.
And so then in a mobile, and you know, I happen to have a small one, but you know, mobile home parks are not generally what I would consider to be the model for upscale dwelling. Let's just put it that way. And you know, if these are allowed, for instance, in R1 zone districts, which typically is the most upscale dwelling, I find it kind of odd that you wouldn't allow it in the mobile home. And then the last thing is in the mobile home districts, like anywhere else, it's more of a kind of a business decision. If not all mobile home lots are built to the minimum requirements. There are mobile home parks that have larger lot sizes where, and in some cases, they're certainly larger than our R1A lots, which apparently this would be allowed in. So I'd like to, I certainly agree with the central business district restriction. I don't think it's necessary in the mobile home parks. And then just a second comment, you know, if you've ever seen a picture of a container ship, these things are stacked like 15 high, or I don't know how high they're stacked, but it's crazy. These ships look top heavy. They have so many of them on there. And I would like to see it allowed to stack 2 of them. Not an infinite stack, but
And that's if they're screened.
Yeah, yeah, I mean,
Why do they have to be
well, actually, quite frankly, I mean, I don't know exactly how you would go about doing it. It specifically mentions in here, I think almost requiring painting, but
No,
Yes.
yes.
doesn't read that way.
But
Well-
it says that they'll be painted, but the additional screening or something like that, it's, that fell under the may part. And I'm not a real big advocate of imposing architectural standards, but on the other hand, in their naked form, these are not the most attractive containers. And, or, you know, they're not attractive, they're certainly functional, but they're not attractive. And in this particular case, I guess I would be supportive of actually, I don't know exactly how you word it, but some sort of standards that make it mandatory that it's less obvious that this is a shipping container sitting in your yard.
How would you do that without screening it or building a?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Around.
Normally, I'm pretty laid back on this whole business of defining architectural standards, but in this case, I think maybe it's appropriate. So two things: ditch the mobile home restriction and allow a two-stack.
So I'm curious, how do they access the storage on the second level?
Cut a hole in it, put a
Safely.
stairway in, just like anything else.
Yeah.
It's,
They build homes out of these things.
oh, yeah, I know,
And
I
they're
mean,
beautiful. But
and, yeah, like I said, if you've ever seen a picture of these ocean-going container ships,
You're not.
it's insane. I mean, if you're talking about something with structural integrity, these things have it. They are built to be stacked sky-high and
full.
And full and heavy. And, you know, cutting a window here or there is not gonna jeopardize that. You'd have to cut the whole side out.
So if you had a two-stacked accessory dwelling storage unit, that could potentially be bigger than the mobile home itself. It's kind of
Yeah,
curious,
I
though.
mean, it's like a two-story garage.
Terry, do you have any reaction to that?
I think you're venturing into areas that I am not familiar with. So I would say that if one is stacked and you're going to cut holes in it and put stairways in, then you're dealing with structural engineering. And I know that it was, the opinion was given to us that those types of architectural changes would require structural engineering. So I would hate for us to, I mean, if somebody wants to do that, we can certainly consider it and work with them to make that happen if you guys would like to see those
Okay,
being
but
two-story. I see no, at this point, I
You know, I'm willing to concede that, but there is no restriction on somebody using this as a storage unit or whatever, and putting windows in it, even a single stack. I mean, because there certainly is nothing in it the way it's written that limits the ability to put in doors or windows
Right.
or anything like that, so. it's,
Right. It may require a permit, though, to achieve that in the city. And we would just,
And then what rules would you use to judge it, to deem it correct or incorrect? Because really, there's no rules that I've.
Right, it isn't. It isn't. We have no rules around it as a habitable structure. So if somebody wanted to put it in, and they're storing a garage, and they put a window in, and it all fell in, we wouldn't necessarily care because they're only hurting their car. They wouldn't be hurting someone else in a garage by a collapsing structure. So we would work with someone around that as we work towards making sure we have regulations for a habitable structure.
Well, and
I'm not-
I would like to
We
see
wanted to
this.
make this as simple as possible, and
Yeah,
I feel as if we're,
Yeah, understood. I would hate to see a long-term restriction on stacking these things because, as Councilman Schumacher pointed out, people make beautiful homes out of these things, and they're multi-story, and they go all over the place. And
They are.
I would hate to see a long-term restriction get put in place that's going to prohibit
But the
future use of these.
The stacking would probably more likely apply to the residential or to the living unit type of intermodal versus a storage.
Yeah.
Very
I mean, like I
possibly.
said, that's, if we go with one story now or just single units, but have a understanding that until we work out details, that's a good place to start, but it's not the end of the conversation.
I concur.
Where are we at?
Well, I don't know, but I have a question.
Mr. Meisner, go ahead.
Am I correct in assuming that originally council had directed that those structures would be included in the central business district?
Yes, but when we left that conversation, I was under the assumption that you guys were still considering these as habitable structures, not accessory structures.
I wasn't under that impression.
Okay,
And
I was,
And I'll
sorry.
piggyback on Dennis's concept. I get confused with the MH1 and the central business district limitation based upon the concept of lot size when you in fact have a setback requirement, which would in fact take care of any lot size issues. Would it not?
The lot, there aren't actually lots in a mobile home park. There are only rental spaces. And generally, they're very small. They're not the size of a residential lot. Now, you may be talking about mobile home subdivision, where those are actually platted lots.
Why couldn't,
But-
in a case where there's no lot lines, why couldn't we let the mobile home park decide whether there is or is not going to be a container there?
Okay, we could do that.
And the-
It's very limited, but if we can certainly
agree.
do that.
To add in that, it's like, okay, a mobile home is mobile. Why should their storage unit be mobile? You know, in a mobile home lot.
Okay. I mean, I'm happy to
That's
make that
just,
change.
you know,
Happy to do it.
I don't want to see those come up for sale. Dina, would you have, I'd like to do this.
Yeah, just trying to clarify a little bit what Terry was explaining in terms of why we are excluding MH1 and the CBD right now is, she was talking about lot size, but I think it's also important to note the lot coverage relative to lot size. So in terms of coverage of a building or a structure in the CBD, it's a very high lot coverage. So there really isn't a lot of room to even put one of these. And then also in the MH1 district, there's really a very high lot coverage per those lots as they're rented, with very small setbacks in that case. So it's going to be very difficult to even try to get one appropriately placed. And then just the other comment I would make is, again, this is just to reiterate what Terry said, this is a first try. You know, we know that these things exist within the community. They're probably going to still come in as accessory uses, so let's at least get some baseline regulations in regulating them that currently do not exist. And just to keep in mind that a typical shipping container is about 160 square feet, which is more than 120 square feet, and 120 square feet is the threshold where we require a building permit for an accessory structure. So in essence, we might be requiring a building permit for every single one of these being placed just by their size.
That's true.
And I would also just, I guess, suggest to not permit them to be stacked right now as an accessory structure until we can do a little bit more research and really considering the heights of accessory structures currently and the various setbacks and how that might impact lots, especially in some of the residential districts.
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Smith?
Dina and Terry, do you have any idea of how many properties in Canyon City are currently have the PODs or ISCs on their lots?
I do not.
No, I can venture a guess, maybe 25,
Okay.
maybe.
And as it's been mentioned before, it is seemed to be a popular thing to turn these into habitable houses, and so it looked like in the 2018 code it might address those building issues. So it's something that was to look to in the future. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. As a housing type, for sure.
Mr. Meisner?
Mr. Mayor, I guess I don't understand why the limitation to only locating on the front yard or side yard, but not in the backyard. Educate me on that.
Says it shall
It's
not
the
be
opposite of that.
located in the
Not
front
be
yard.
in the front yard or the side yard.
I feel better.
Thank you, Mr. Meisner.
One more question, if nobody else has one.
Mr. Meisner, yes.
While we're talking about containers, I don't know that I've ever seen a container, considering what they're intended for, being seaworthy and dealing with those elements, that is not painted when it was manufactured. And the verbiage that you've got on 3B, on not 3B, but page 3B, it says, a shipping container shall be painted. Isn't it not already painted if I get it?
Well, if you read further, it has to be painted so that it is complementary to the house.
It says may.
No, shall.
Shall be painted and may be.
Enclosed.
May be enclosed or architecturally changed, but it shall be painted.
Altered to be compatible with.
I agree, it should be painted, but I guess we need an attorney here.
Maybe clarify that it shall be painted to be
I don't think those two are,
compatible.
is that a conjunction there?
I think, and Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want the compatible with the appearance of the principal structure, et cetera, to also modify the painted. You want it to be painted?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we need a
can move that.
comma in there.
Something,
Okay,
okay.
we can do that.
And the point is we want all those to look similar, or the same, or something, right?
Well, so that
We don't
it's
want sore
compatible to the
thumbs.
appearance of the on-site principal structure. For example, at Wolf Park, there are a lot of really angry residents there because for miles are those shipping units parked on the railway tracks, which is legal for them, but it's very unsightly and incredibly ugly, and it makes the neighbors so upset.
So if they painted them, you'd feel better.
Maybe a little bit better, especially if it was kind of camouflaged.
Any other questions, or have we, okay.
I have a question, but it's not on the containers. It's on page 2, section 3, where it starts with, in order to provide a transition. You talk about all commercial or industrial external service areas. I'm still concerned, does that mean, I hate to point out a business, but does that mean that the tire shop out by Walmart would have to have it screened because their service area is external? Technically?
Ultimately, yes.
We can't do that.
No.
I understand the concept, and I understand what we're trying to do relative to corridors, but that general language of an exterior service area impacts a substantial amount of businesses, in my opinion.
What if it was painted to have a compatible appearance?
I'm gonna turn your mic off.
Okay,
I don't know what the verbiage is there, but the intent seems to be that there's a number of service areas that
Are
would have to put up a
exterior.
screen. And I point out that one, I think that we're all aware of, that does their service work
Yeah.
outside, and they would have to screen that.
It's true.
Are they adjacent to residential property? I'm just not familiar with them.
No.
No. It's general
Well,
commercial.
then I don't think they would have to screen.
But they are adjacent to Highway 50.
Okay.
Right.
Well, not literally. It's a frontage
No.
road.
You got the frontage road and then Highway 50.
I just have concern with that verbiage and what it would do with some businesses.
Okay, let's,
Well, I think it's also important to remember, again, the original intent of bringing this ordinance forward was not just to focus on shipping containers. It was also to get a little bit more teeth into screening of not-so-pretty areas in the community, and particularly along key corridors, is from what I understand when this started, which was when I started. So the intent is that it's about new businesses or whatever percentage of change of that business, or if the property would change over, then they would have to start complying. So you have to remember again that any existing business would be grandfathered into the fact that there was a lack of any screening regulations prior to this passing.
why would screening a unit at a tire shop inhibit their productivity of work?
It wouldn't if you paid for the screening. You're talking about a substantial cost to put up that screening.
Yes, it would be. And then it.
And which way are you screening?
Then it restricts that company, if they wanted to sell to another person wanting to do the same kind of business, to not be able to come in there and do that unless they screen, if it's going to be new. And they do, basically all they do is tires. They don't do any mechanical stuff and everything else, but sort of require them to screen all that area where you come in, get your tire fixed, put some new ones on, and you drive away. I don't think that would be
Would you be
fair to them.
screening that particular business from the highway, from the frontage road, or from Walmart's parking lot?
Well, I think the intent of the ordinance would be,
Well, that's what, it says Highway 50, 115.
Okay, we're making this an all-night debate. I'd like to
Yeah.
maybe what we should do, because I'm even confused, and I'm trying to contain this discussion. Do you want to bring that to a General Government and Vision Committee meeting? I hate to keep putting this off, but it just sounds like we're going to be here, we'll be talking uncontained for too long.
well, if it's the council's pleasure to pass this as it's written, let's bring it up and vote on it. It doesn't matter to me, I'm just telling you that I can't agree with that particular verbiage. And that's why we have discussions, Mayor.
Is that the, I know, but it keeps going on and on and on. So are we going to bring it up to a motion?
I
Is that
think
the
we
pleasure
should
of
go ahead
council?
and vote on it and see where we're
All right.
sitting.
Let's have a motion and a second.
Well,
No?
before we introduce the ordinance, because it's a lot cleaner if I do it now than
It's been
then.
introduced, sorry.
I would like to strike the reference to mobile home parks.
Dennis, it's been introduced, so you would
Oh.
have to amend the ordinance.
Oh, I thought we had to introduce.
He introduced
Okay,
It's been
sorry.
introduced.
Well, in that case, I'm going to make a motion to amend the ordinance in section, on page 2, section 5, to eliminate the prohibition for mobile home parks.
Second.
Is that the only amendment?
Is that the only amendment this time? Okay. Motion made and seconded. Shall we vote on that motion?
Jim already did.
I second.
It's been seconded, been made and seconded. Shall we vote on that motion? Okay. Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Weed.
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it.
Councilmember Gill.
Aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote. Now we need to vote to approve the amended motion. Amended ordinance, sorry.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the ordinance as amended by striking mobile home. Need a motion to that effect? Who would like to make that motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still, you need a motion for what?
We need
To approve ordinance
approve
34 as amended.
As amended, which
Oh.
struck mobile homes.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Schumacher?
Oh, I say that we pass ordinance number 21, series of 2017, as amended on first reading.
You're making that as a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Gill has seconded the motion. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Schumacher.
Nay.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Nay.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Nay.
Councilmember Weed?
Nay.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Denied by majority vote.
Okay.
Okay, so I think the issue here is clarifying some of this language. I think the issue, I think we like the ordinance. I think there's still some fine tuning, so.
Would you like us to bring this to general government? And maybe we can hash through some of that and offer some other wording as we continue the discussion?
I think that would be more appropriate format.
Or they could approve the ordinance as written today, because it failed.
It failed, but I would rather bring it to,
The amendment failed. The amendment failed.
Say what?
Oh, yeah, her comment was that we could approve the ordinance as written because we failed to pass the amended ordinance, but I'm venturing, well, I don't know, I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth, but I certainly wouldn't vote for the ordinance in the unamended version.
I think we're uncomfortable with this.
Yeah.
And I think appropriately, we had that discussion. The general government gives everybody more time to kind of discuss this, and then you can all discuss it with your weekly meetings with our administrator.
Terry, it might be useful to find out other communities and the requirements that they have, especially for businesses like tire shops and such, because often if you go to other communities, you do see screening and storage. It's very common actually to see that, so it'd be nice to see that and understand it.
Okay,
We'll
we'll
have
work
even a
on that.
conversation with Peerless Tire and.
So let's table it maybe to the first meeting in November.
Okay.
Can we do
Council
that?
meeting?
First council meeting in November, that gives us at least one general government meeting to talk about it. That be okay?
Motion to
Do I got a motion to that for tabling?
We aren't tabling anything, it's already been not passed.
Well, the motion was out there.
Yeah, technically, we didn't pass the, I'll make the motion to table this until the first council meeting in November.
Second.
Second. Call roll, please.
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Sure.
That's an aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez? Nay, sorry. Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Approved by majority vote.
Okay. Thank you again. 10A is a public hearing, Great Western Storage LLC. It's an annexation. I hereby open the public hearing. Could I have a report from city planner, please?
Yes, Mayor, and members of council, this is an annexation and a zone designation for Great Western Storage, which is located at 3070 East Main. It's a 3.69 acre parcel that's owned by Don Dill. We're going to have a public hearing. You're going to decide on a resolution that finds the parcel eligible, or if you decide that the parcel is eligible for annexation, and then there will also be an ordinance annexing the parcel. After that, you'll also consider the initial zone designation. So I'm just going to run through all of these items for you relatively briefly. The Planning Commission made a recommendation. They heard this at their regular meeting on September 19th, and acting as the Annexation Advisory Committee, went through the annexation criteria, which is in your staff report, and determined in a unanimous vote to recommend approval of the annexation. They also recommended approval of the zone designation. This property, as I said, is a little over 3.5 acres. It's contiguous to the city limits on its northern and eastern boundaries. The applicant is planning to construct about 40,000 square feet of storage units, and then in the future to subdivide a build-to-suit parcel on the north side of the property that may be restaurant, retail, something along that nature. He has begun his building process in Fremont County, and he will finish all of those processes, the rest of his development, in the city of Canyon City. The application in terms of the annexation is eligible. It meets the 1/6 contiguity required by the state constitution and the revised statutes. There are some other requirements that our city attorney may want to review with you with respect to the state statutes, and I'll move on to the suitability guidelines. Those are in your staff packet, as I said, and in summary, basically, the property is and can be provided with standard urban services, water, sewer, utilities, police, and fire protection, among the other things that an infill lot has and usually has within a city. It's located within our annexation priority area, and I provided you with the urban growth boundary map. It shows you where that parcel is. There are going to be no additional capital improvements by the city to provide services. The land does not contain any natural features that are worthy of preservation. The land will be used for commercial purposes. The city's land use controls and its zoning designation will ensure orderly, consistent, and timely development. In your packet, you'll find the petition for annexation from the property owner. There's an annexation information sheet as well, and some supplementary information provided by the applicant. The minutes of the Planning Commission that was held on September 19th. That includes the annexation criteria and the advisory report. We've provided a vicinity map and the urban growth boundary map, as well as a facsimile of the annexation map. I'm going to move on real quick to, is there anything that the attorney would like to say about the annexation?
No, I can answer any questions you have regarding it, though.
You take a pause here for annexation, then I'll move into the zoning designation, if you'd like. Or unless you have any questions about the annexation.
No, seems reasonable to me.
Well, yeah, I've got some questions.
Mr. Reed?
I don't know if this is the appropriate time. But what the heck, I'll just fire away. Mr. Dill's in the audience. And I'm trying to determine the benefit to the city to annexing this property. So there'll be a negligible property tax benefit. There's no sales tax going to be generated on this piece of property. And and now there is some benefit that I see to these infill projects, because that East Canyon City's got some pretty goofy borders, zigzagging all over the place. But I'd like to ask Mr. Dill, why do you want to annex this piece of property? And to answer that, you'd need to go to the podium so we can hear you on television.
Yeah, I think there's some benefits to not only me, but to the city to annex. One thing I'm going to do is the storage units, but down the road, as soon as I am annexed, I'm going to be doing a subdivision, and the front part of the property will be used for, as Terry said, a restaurant or retail. So that's in the plans. As far as the storage part of it, yeah, it's a way to kind of make the project cash flow to the point where I believe that I can do that and benefit the city. The first phase of it may not, to answer your question. The second phase, I think, will, and I think that's a good partnership for both of us. The other thing that comes to mind is, you know, it's surrounded basically by the city, and I think with your plan, you'd like to have that whole area be annexed, and that makes sense. I don't think just leaving one little enclave there benefits anybody, and in fact probably isolates you know, some people. So I think it's in the best interest of of me and the city to have this overall plan. One might benefit you more than the other, but in the overall scheme of things, I think the commercial real estate piece in the front on the north side, I'm going to keep that at about a 1 acre parcel, will benefit the city.
Well, fair answer, appreciate it.
Thank you, Steele.
While you're up there, I do have some questions. I was wondering how it says that it's in a flood zone, and so you're going to have to build about a foot above the base flood elevation. Is that going well for you? Is that going to be a problem?
I didn't quite hear all the question.
It says that according to the engineer, that there's a base flood elevation, and that you're going
Right.
to have to be built a foot above.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, there is a base flood elevation. Apparently, in 2012, there was a study done. And, you know, that study identified a base flood elevation. And to be above the base flood elevation, I'm going to be putting the buildings for the storage unit 1 foot above what the engineer comes up with. And as Terry said, I'm, you know, starting the first part of it in the county. So my engineer and the county engineer are working through that part of the process. And that's the last part of the process. The building department at Fremont County has approved the buildings other than that.
Mr. Meisner.
Maybe directed to Terry or whomever can answer this. We talk about the first phase, and that's what you're talking about, is being done through the county. But is that portion also part of the annexation, or is that not part of the annexation?
The whole parcel is being annexed, and his first building is his first phase. That's what we consider the first, at least I did in this staff report. So that first building is being permitted in the county.
But will ultimately be annexed?
Yes, the whole parcel will be annexed.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a question out of curiosity. It says that Don Dill will be responsible for covering half of the ditch which crosses the property, and I was curious as to why and what the purposes of that.
I think the city engineer could probably answer that better. I think it's because I don't know. Sorry. Half of it's already covered.
I don't know
That's
either.
a perfect answer.
Our goal has been to cover the ditch there along East Main for a number of years now, and we've done that in pieces as things have developed. Two main reasons. One is to improve the access there to the property and allow room for the infrastructure that's necessary to go on top of it, curb, gutter, sidewalk, and those sorts of things, and widening the road to the standard it should be. And the other is to keep the stormwater out of the ditch.
Okay, and is that okay with Don Dill? Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, that's fine. I planned for that. And in fact, there's also a third point, and that's a liability issue. If a kid comes along the ditch, I'm responsible.
So it's a protection to you as well?
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from council? Okay, hearing none. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And 10B is resolution number 28, 2017, finding parcel eligible for annexation. I need a motion and second from council. Mr. Weed.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Make the motion to approve resolution number 28, series of 2017.
Second.
Second, Ms. Schumacher. Or would you call, any discussion on that motion? Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, now we have improved it for annexation. We need an ordinance. So ordinance number 35, series 2017, this is the first reading. It's annexation of the property into city limits. I need three to introduce. Ms. Smith, Mr. Weed, Mr. Gill, Mr. Meisner, thank you. Would you read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 35, series of 2017, an ordinance approving and accomplishing the annexation of certain unincorporated lands commonly known as Great Western Storage LLC annexation to the City of Canyon City, Colorado.
Thank you. Could I have a motion and second?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopted ordinance number 35, series of 2017 upon first reading.
Second.
Mr. Weed, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, we need number 10D. It's an ordinance number 36, series 2016. This is a first reading. It's zoning for that property that we were going to annex, recently annexed. I need three to introduce. Mr. Weed, Ms. Arquez, and Ms. Schumacher. Could I have the title, read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 36, series of 2017, and ordinance zoning certain property recently annexed into the City of Canyon City, Colorado, known as Great Western Storage LLC annexation.
Could I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve ordinance number 36, series of 2017 on first reading.
Second.
Okay, that's 17. I have 16 here, correct? It's 2017. Correct. Okay. Mr. Arquez, second. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing and seeing none, would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye. Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Thank you. Number 11, local marketing plan. Could I have a report from the Economic Development Coordinator if he's still here? Oh, he's here, yes. Ryan.
All right, Mr. Mayor and members of council, the Royal Gorge Regional Tourism Council has submitted their budget and marketing plan per ordinance that adopted the council. We have a budget of $700,000. That's $300,000 being generated by the 5% sales tax, $300,000 being matched by the city, and $100,000 from the county. The marketing plan is designed to look at both digital and traditional media for reaching target audiences that are in the Denver metro area and the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which have been identified by the FCTC, the Fremont County Tourism Council, as the top markets that we are seeing visitors from. And the marketing plan that you've received, I did have a note from Councilman Meisner. There is a tabulation error on the top target markets, so we have updated that. And we have also added, we've alluded to the Abbey and the winery in the marketing plan. We've added the Abbey into the marketing plan as well. Take any questions at this time.
Any questions from council? Comments?
I-
Mr. Weed?
Just a comment. And due to the Tabor language on ballot issues that create revenue, we tend to estimate, or we would prudently estimate the revenue generated in the first year conservatively high. So the ballot issue is, has put a figure of $300,000 in there, I believe.
I think it was
And
4.
375, I think.
is it 375?
I think it was 4. Of the
Harry-
375?
Harry changed it from 300 or 350 to 375.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Okay, it's,
So there's a margin of error there.
so, okay, that's a good margin of error, so it's, it would be
20%.
nice if we ran up against that, but we're not going to. Last year, the revenue generated was, by the lodging tax, was about 200,000.
Yeah, exactly.
What I want the public to be, and council to be reassured is that this is a $700,000 budget, and I think that's an optimistic goal for what might be realistically realized, and so that there needs to be a little bit of flexibility in the budget to adjust for. I don't want the city to end up on the hook
No.
for the marketing bill, assuming, some number will,
Sure.
some revenue will be generated, but we don't know what it is. And in all probability, I'm expecting that it'll probably be something, maybe not a lot, but something less than 700,000.
Yeah, there is a small contingency, but if necessary, as we see the revenues coming in, if they don't meet our expectations, we'll come back both to the council and to the city council to revise the budget downward.
Sure, okay.
Okay.
Other than that, I think it's a solid budget.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other questions or comments from council? Mr. Meisner?
I don't know whether to ask this or ask it as part of our budget process.
Sure.
But we keep talking about the city's commitment to do 300,000, which is offsetting a portion of the current tax, if I'm understanding that correctly, and then the anticipation of sales tax revenue as a result of tourism. If 2B were to fail, and we pass the 2018 budget that includes the 300,000 that goes to this tourism, what is the intention of that 300,000? And what is the intention of the tourism council, or what's the process, or what are you going to do should 2B fail?
First, you'll know the answer to that before you adopt the budget, so that's helpful. Second, the council would have to reconsider. You could punt until we brought this ballot measure back, or you could decide to still supplement the existing $200,000 budget with city resources, but that's a decision you can make down the road. But we'll have an answer to that question before you finalize and adopt the budget. So the budget can be revised should the measure fail.
You mentioned 200,000. It's my understanding that the county's committing their monies only if 2B passes? Or is it either way?
Based upon its passage.
Because we'd have to have more conversations if it
Yeah.
fails.
Yeah.
If it didn't, if it doesn't pass, then where's that 200,000 that you're talking about?
Well, there would still be the existing 2%. The city's motels and hotels would still generate 100,000, and there's about another 100,000 generated outside the city limits. So it'd still be the base amount of 200,000. We'd have to sit down and discuss
Okay.
that. I mean,
Got it.
we're optimistic based upon this campaign that the public will see the wisdom of making this investment and hopefully better positioning and branding not only Canyon City, but the region as a tourist attraction.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a few
Ms. Smith?
questions. On the city match, you talked about taking some of the money we had set aside for economic development and applying it to this. Is that money still consistently being spent towards economic development, even though it's within the?
This year, it was not. I'm trying to remember how we parceled that out. We spent, Dina got a piece of that by bringing her on. But the amount really was probably excessive to start with, given the other needs of the downtown. It's certainly going to be better utilized as a source for branding the entire community and region versus one small aspect of it. And to be honest, even if we were to brand and promote the downtown, we don't think right now there's honestly enough synergy to warrant that investment.
However, downtown still does need some support. and
Yeah,
help
there's
to do it.
money still for special events and other promotions, just not to that degree.
So does
Would-
this budget take into account supporting and promoting downtown or helping it
Mhm.
gain some
Yeah,
traction?
it's as an
easily?
aspect of the Royal Gorge region.
Yeah.
And, as Mr. O'Rourke stated, there's a budget in there for special events and, supporting the existing events that are currently taking place.
It does mention a goal to add an additional special event in the year 2018. Do you have a rough idea of what kind of event you're entertaining, creating?
Yeah, I don't know if there's, the council's really decided on that yet, but there have been some, discussions around some type of outdoor recreation events.
Yeah, we believe that probably the best utilization for a new event would be something that would
highlight and leverage our existing outdoor activities with a combination of rafting, hiking, mountain biking, to showcase that with some sort of special event. I don't know if you're familiar with events like Tough Mudder, to take advantage of our natural resources and strengths and incorporate some sort of a competition that would lend publicity and promotion to what exists for free.
So would that event take place, we have our peak period, I saw, from Memorial Day to the end of July. Would
Yeah.
that take place outside of that peak area in order to extend our?
I think that would be the interest. We really want to stretch the season, probably from March all the way into the fall, and really start building upon, and not just focus on summer, but build upon those shoulder seasons. That's what the other resorts, whether it be Vail, Alamosa, Carbondale, Durango, have all done very, very successfully, really stretched out that period of time.
Ryan, there had been talk in the, with this marketing plan to bring some of our bigger businesses together as far as doing some buy-in or package deals. Is that still part of the conversation and the goals for 2018?
Yeah, I think, certainly want to make sure that we're bringing in all the partners that we can in order to collaborate and make this successful.
And I have one more question, and I don't know if you would have the answer to this. I hear all the time, no matter where I go, why can't we be more like Salida? Salida is doing this, and Salida is doing that. And I notice that they just have a 1.9% lodging tax, yet they have a budget of $530,000 for their marketing, which is quite considerable. Do you know, does that entire $530,000 come from their lodging tax, or is it supplemented in other ways?
I don't know offhand.
Most of it comes from that, but you need to recognize that just from not just the lodging tax, but also the sales tax, because it's a combined tax that the visitor pays, not just lodging, they also pay on top of that. And I think they're all close to 12%, but they do 3 times the sales tax per capita that we do.
Well, and I just want to clarify as far as support for the lodging tax is because so many people ask, why can't we be more like Salida? Well, this is what Salida is doing right here, is what we have laid out. And I want to commend you and your committee. This is an excellent package that you put together and well thought out and researched, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Meisner?
Do you have a copy of this plan up there?
I do.
The figures on page 5 and page 6, particularly on the U.S. Travel Association answer sheet and forecast, there's a reference to 2014. And then on page 6, under the destination analysis part, it makes a reference to 2013. Are those information, is that information that far behind?
The information that we have right now, yes, that's the most current information that we have.
I think that's common even in other venues, like for citizen or communities that care. We're doing a lot of data assessment, and a lot of that data assessment that we have, the most current numbers we are using are from 2013 as well.
It just seems odd when you read the statement about 2/3 of U.S. internet users, and then you reference back to 2013. That seems like some kind of a paradox.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if that study probably gets done every 4 years. I'm sure it's a very expensive, exhaustive study.
Okay.
But we'll check on that.
Okay. Good comments. Thank you. Any more questions from council? Hearing none, could we have a motion and a second? Mr. Weed?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I make a motion to approve the local marketing plan for the presented by the Royal Gorge Regional Tourism Council.
Second. Ms. Schumacher, any discussion on that motion? Hearing seen none, would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Weed?
Aye.
Councilmember Schumacher?
Aye.
Councilmember Gill?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Thank you,
Good job,
Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
And the
You guys did a
moment,
good job putting that together.
the moment we've all been waiting for, Mr. Lancaster, number
I
12.
actually am very excited about this 4th Street Viaduct.
Yes, right.
Yeah, no kidding.
bid, yeah.
It's been going on for
Years.
a decade, at least.
Yeah.
Slapping over councils.
Yeah, bid number 36-17, this is for the 4th Street Viaduct rehabilitation. Would you have the report, Mr. City Engineer?
Yes, thank you for being patient. I know we probably should have bundled this together with the resolution since they are very much related. Just a little background, back in 2014, we had budgeted for the 2015 budget to, out of city funds, to do the rehabilitation of the 4th Street Viaduct. And we went ahead, even though we had it budgeted, we went ahead and applied for a grant and did get that grant. We originally had 2 different repair options for the bridge, and we thought we would bid them out as alternates. We did so, and we only received 1 bid, and it was in excess of $1 million. So we revisited it, we talked to some contractors, and we adjusted our estimate, and then we went back to the state and asked for additional funding. They did give us additional funding and a supplementary grant. That's what you approved today. Resolution was for adding that extra money. Then we rebid it again early this spring, and we received no bids at that time. So the problem with that was, we heard again from the contractors, was a number of things. One, we were bidding the 2 alternates, and they didn't like the idea that there were alternates. They felt there was too much risk there. Also, we had heard during our US 50 corridor planning process that the pedestrian connection over the 4th Street Viaduct was still important. So one of the options originally was to eliminate the sidewalk and widen the lanes on the bridge. So we eliminated that option with the option to keep the sidewalk. And then we also heard from the contractors that the timeline was too tight because there's only one manufacturer here that builds the rail for the bridge. So there was too much material acquisition time. Again, depending on when it fell in their schedule, they weren't able to adequately plan for it. It's fairly specialized work. So we eliminated the one option. We also added a fair amount of construction time, basically allowing them to start material acquisition now. And then they will have all of next construction season to choose when they want to do the work. They will still be limited to the amount of time to do the work, which will be 90 days, but they can start anywhere between April and October to do that. And they're also limited on not doing any of the work during the Whitewater Festival. So with that, we did get a fair amount more interest. We did receive 2 bids. Both bidders are from out of town. Again, I mentioned this is highly specialized work. That doesn't mean they won't necessarily use any local contractors. The majority of it is concrete repair work. So Abco, which is out of Denver, as well as Kiewit, were the bidders. We received an excellent bid from Kiewit that's well within budget. And because we had adjusted our estimates and our budget for that, we're well within the budget. We're well within the grant dollar budget, which means that we are a little concerned about what the condition of the concrete is underneath some of the asphalt before we remove it. So this gives us a fair amount of breathing room for contingency in case there's some issues underneath the asphalt when they remove it. And also the grant dollars are there already within the contract with the resolution that we passed tonight. So we are requesting a 30% contingency, which is a little different than what we normally do, and that's the reason for that. And even doing that, because we had so much overmatch of the city money in the project, this will free up an additional $350,000 in our general fund budget for something else other than this. So with your blessing, we're asking that you award this bid to Kiewit Infrastructure Company for a grand total of $632,277.10, contingent upon CDOT approval. Has to be contingent upon CDOT because we still have to wait for their blessing of the bid.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Could I ask for a motion and a second?
Mr. Mayor,
Schumacher?
I make the motion to approve bid number 36-17, the 4th Street Viaduct rehabilitation.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Hawkins, second, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Schumacher, Aye. Councilmember Jaquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Gill.
Aye.
Councilmember Weed.
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, number 13 is ordinance number
Thank
30.
you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Now you can go on.
I don't think he even waited for that.
We could have put him at the end, you know. Okay. Number 13, ordinance number 37, series 2017. This is a first reading. It's an ordinance directing the certification of certain assets. I need three to introduce. Mr. Weed.
Oh. I don't know if you want a little explanation on it.
We'll get you to you.
You got it?
Mr. Weed, Ms. Meisner, Ms. Smith, would you read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 37, series of 2017, an ordinance directing the certification of certain assessments against specific real property within the city of Canyon City.
Okay, could we have a report from the city administrator?
Yes. Whoops, I just threw my sheet away.
Your big moment.
I can do it.
Your big
So
moment.
your code requires that when the costs of nuisance abatements are to be certified to the county for collection as, in the same manner as property tax, that you pass an ordinance going ahead and certifying those amounts per property. So that's all that this does. So they'll be in the tax rolls for next year if you approve this.
Mr. Tony, would you have any more comments?
Well, there were 7 properties that were subject to the nuisance abatement violation, and then we lien those properties, record them with the clerk at the county. As the city attorney has indicated, 5 of those properties never paid those liens, so now we forward those liens to the county treasurer for collection, about $31,000 that will be collected in 2018. So, and help continue our efforts to abate nuisance properties.
How does the county treasurer just put them as a lien on the property? Do they physically-
Yeah, and they're on the parcel, the tax, so the taxes then will be collected for each one of those.
So the lien's actually technically on the property already. The city
Correct.
records that lien, right? And then we certify that lien for collection through the treasurer. And that's authorized by
And do they-
statute and your code and.
Correct. Do they collect it yearly or in bulk? How do we get paid?
So like, yeah, so you get paid when they pay their property taxes. So when they get their
Oh,
bill,
my goodness.
their property taxes are gonna show that additional amount on there depending on what's certified.
Wow.
Yeah,
And so their property tax payment will be adjusted for that.
And 90% of the total outstanding amount is on one property.
Right.
The 2 parcels.
So that's about a $15,000 charge. So the regular taxes plus 15,000 is our taxes for next year?
Correct.
Oh, my goodness. Do you understand that? Not that I have anything against it, I got it. But,
No, I appreciate the clarification because this is
Yeah.
new to me
Yeah.
as well.
so your tax bill was $300, now your tax bill is $15,300.
Well, it's actually,
So-
yeah, it's your cleaning bill,
Okay.
realistically.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, it's not a tax, it's just being collected in the same manner as taxes.
Sure,
so.
it's not.
And
Okay,
they've been duly notified, they've been.
I know. I just thought I wanted to clarify that. Any other comments or questions from council? Seeing none, could I have a motion, a second from council?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve ordinance number 37, series of 2017 on first reading.
Second, Mr. Sarkis, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Schumacher.
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Weed.
Aye.
Councilmember Gill.
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Well, thank you all. We're adjourned.